Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to today's IEEE USA livestream webinar, Professional in Forensic Engineering and Expert Witness Career Progression. I will now pass it off to our presenter for today's webinar, President of Peruzzi Consulting and Board Member of the Alliance of IEEE Consultants Network Coordinating Committee, Robert Peruzzi, PhD in PE. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John, and thank you, Darrell Griffin, for inviting me to make this talk today. Let's get started. I've been consultant for a bit more than a decade now, and I thought to tell you my story, how I got there, and discuss other people's paths that they might take, and that sort of thing. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this format. I've made this talk live in front of dozens of people before, and also with WebEx, so that there was interaction, or Zoom and WebEx, so there was some kind of an interaction. This is my first time where it's completely talking into a dark room where I can't see anyone and people can't talk to me. So let's get started, and we'll see how it goes. But bear with me, please. Back in 2008, this is how I became a consultant. You can read that. I can't wait to tell my wife we're moving to Germany. Oh, not you. Your job is moving. Just pack your things and get out of here. Well, the truth of the matter is that it was my manager and HR rep. They were both in tears, and they treated me very well throughout the process. And in fact, we're still friends. At this point, I would ask the audience if you were here and if we were in the same room, or if we were could interact. It says, "Oh, tell me, how did you end up doing this consulting thing? So how did you lose your job or whatever?" So, have you been there? Have you been laid off? Have you lost a job? Well, I'm in Pennsylvania. It's here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's a cool and damp afternoon, a little sprinkly. I moved to Allentown, Pennsylvania in 1990. Back then, it was a one-horse town. We had AT&T, and that was about it, if you don't count the electric company. We had the electric utility and AT&T, and that was about it for electrical engineers. So it was a one-horse town. By 2008, we had half a dozen horses. There was some spin-offs, there was some startups that came about. And so there still weren't a lot of choices that there are out in Silicon Valley, for instance. I didn't want to relocate. And once again, I didn't want to work for a huge company. Now, Infineon was the final company I was working for, and they had split off from LSI, and I was with Infineon, and LSI offered me a job with my previous department, which I had left to go with a different department. I ended up with Infineon, but I was actually collecting a pension from LSI, so there would have been a hiatus if I had gone back to work for them. Years earlier, a co-musician who had retired from AT&T was double dipping. And so he was collecting a pension, and he was working part-time for AT&T, and they came up with a rule: oh, no more double dipping. Said, you can no longer work part-time for AT&T. So he did an end around. He formed this S corporation, and then he continued working for his old group at AT&T at that time. So I said, gee, I think I want to do that. So I talked to my previous manager and says, hey, can I do that too? What if I incorporate and you bring me in as an independent consultant? And so, yes, but now this was like a turning point, because you have to do it as an S corporation. You can't just do it as an LLC or a sole proprietor. I can only make this fly if you become an S corporation. I don't know whether he was correct or not, but I went ahead and did that. So anyway, I went back to work for them, and my pension payments continued, and I did consulting work for them for a number of projects, and it was great. At this time, I would ask the audience if we were all together or could answer. I'd say, well, how many electrical engineers are here in the audience? Show of hands. Hey. And I'd say, how many of you engineers? How about how many engineers, but not electrical engineers? How many employed? How many of you are employees and how many are self-employed? Any consultants? And of you engineers, how of you are professional licensed? Are you PEs? Are any of you expert witnesses? And if you're an expert witness, are you a member of the National Academy of Forensic Engineers, NAFE? So those are the kind of questions we would discuss, and that usually turns into about 5 minutes or so discussion with people. We can't do that today, so let's move on and talk about professional engineer licensing. You, at least to some of you, even have an EIT, engineering training license. Now, in my senior year undergraduate BSEE, I tested for EIT. That's the best time to do it because everything is still fresh in your mind. Second best time, do it right now before you forget. Oh yeah, I just got something from Joe R, PE in 2 states. Cool, I'm seeing some things up here. Alan Swanson, PE. Very good. Thank you for commenting. It's almost as good as a discussion. Jonathan tells me, by the way, that there is about a 20-second lag between my voice and what you hear, and what you put up as a comment, and when it comes up on the screen. I guess that's kind of like what used to be live TV. It keeps in case I say something obscene or something, then John can bleep me out and kick me out of here. I'll try not to do that. Senior year advice was, as an electrical engineer, you may never need it, but it's much easier now because you forget the little before you forget the little you've learned about mechanical engineering, civil, etc. And they were right. There was in the EIT, when I took it, there were a lot of questions. Hello, Doug, Bob L., retired PE. Relatively few electrical engineers have PE licenses. And the question is, why don't they need to? And that's because the industrial exemption. When I was working at AT&T, later on Lucent, later on Agear, later on LSI, then Infineon, was without even changing my desks or parking space. There was only one other PE that I knew of as a co-employee. And I asked him, why did you do this, Tim? And he said, oh, because my father was a PE when I was just getting started, he told me I ought to do it. And so he did. So I never did. I got the EIT, and that was a good thing. The industrial exemption is the reason why you don't really need to. In the USA, industrial exemption allows businesses to employ employees and call them an engineer, as long as such individuals are under the direct supervision and control of the business entity. And here are the rules. Such person does not have the final authority to approve or ultimate responsibility for engineering designs, plans, or specs that are to be incorporated into fixed works, systems, or facilities, or made available to the public. So these individuals are prohibited from representing an ability or willingness to perform engineering services or make an engineering judgment requiring a licensed professional engineer, etc., etc. And there's you'll be able to look that up later on and see that website that has the laws on the industrial exemption. So most electrical engineers do not need one, a PE license. However, the National Society of Professional Engineers wants to get rid of that industrial exemption. It's their position that all engineers who are responsible ought to have a license, and they would like to see it eliminated in state licensing laws. And you can see their position at that URL. Now, not everything is rosy with professional licensing, and one of the reasons is that each state has got a finger in the pie, and where even though electrical engineering remains the same from anywhere on Earth and probably anywhere in this universe, physics is physics. The states get into it, and each state is making some money off of it, and so they say, no, we want to have a separate license for Pennsylvania and New Jersey and New York. They don't want to have a national license. Well, that kind of puts the NSPE in a bad light, because they're not, it's nice and everything to have all the engineers licensed, but to force licenses for every different state, that kind of takes the wind out of their argument, drops the seriousness of their argument. So I'm a little bit ambivalent about NSPE in that respect. However, I needed my PE license because I was selling my services as an independent engineering consultant. And by the rules, I cannot call myself an engineer unless I'm licensed. So I applied, studied, and sat for the exam and obtained my PE license in 2010. Now I'm legal. Oddly enough, that the thing about the different states, during the time I was studying for the PE examination and filling in all the paperwork for it, getting references, I was working on site at a company in New York State. I wasn't even in Pennsylvania. So even though I got my PE license, I was still not legal, theoretically, because there I was working in New York State. So, that's the way it went. Now I'm legal, though, now I'm legit as far as Pennsylvania goes, anyway. Oh, by the way, this would be a good discussion item at when we reach the Q&A session. So now, doing business as an engineering consultant. Simple, 4 easy steps. Find clients, close contracts, please the clients with your work, and get paid. Easy. Now, presumably, step 3 is easy for you because you can please clients with your work, because that's what your career has been all about up to this point. This is your product that you can sell. So how can you learn the other 3 steps? Well, there are books, but there's no better way than by networking and talking to other people in similar positions. My solution was to join a consultants network affiliated with IEEE. Even if you don't have a local consultants network, you can join AICN. Well, you can join it at the free level, but even better, if you pay for the level that allows you to put up a web page, that's even better. You can have an ad with a consultants finder, the AICN consultants finder for IEEE USA. But here's a photo from our old Philadelphia Consultants Network. We called it CONET. And here we are having a meeting. Somebody took this photo. And so we would have meetings, and there'd be a social hour, and would talk, and it was great. It was fun. We had sessions on legal aspects such as PE licensing, incorporation, tax IDs, accounting, insurance. Besides your liability insurance, if you need to get your own medical insurance and disability and life insurance too, and also the administration of your business, how much to charge, how to make quotes, etc., and how to protect your status as a consultant versus an employee. That has become a big deal right now. The last this year, in fact, there are laws being made and to protect people who are gig workers for such as Uber and Lyft and so forth. But in their haste to make these laws protecting these people from business practices, they're making laws that can interfere to some extent with independent professionals like consultants and contractors. So it's something to be aware of to protect your status as a consultant. And nearly as important as these educational sessions was the social aspect. When we were there together with other consultants, we could be ourselves. Rather than putting on a smiley face for customers all the time, well, we could be ranting and raving and discussing and so forth, and we could ask each other for help with business or technical troubles, and without showing any uncertainty to our customers, and most especially the cross referrals that we made between other electrical engineering consultants with different specialties within the within our organization. So what went wrong with that? Well, what went wrong was the consultant agencies, otherwise known as job shops. Now, these job shops successfully created fear among HR and hiring managers that their companies are in dire risk of IRS trouble if they contract independent consultants, because the IRS may judge that they should be classified as employees. Oh, yeah, there's a grain of truth in that. It has to be done carefully. That risk is real if the consultant does not maintain his or her status as independent. And there's a nice link here with an article on maintaining your status as independent. So the conversation went, oh, you'd better be safe than sorry. My agency will provide you one of our consultants, and the risk is all on us, not you. And so then they took a big fat commission, about 40%, for finding these kind of contract jobs. So at that CONET meeting, I'm there talking with the guys and ranting and raving about how the job shops are frightening my customers into not hiring me directly. And one of the CONET members, who was invited here tonight, said to me, well, you cannot beat the job shop folks. Their claims are half true, and to that extent, they do provide a good service. So why don't you consider becoming an expert witness like me? So I said, let me think about that. How do I get there from here? Here's the rule on expert witnessing. And excerpted from that rule 702, is that a witness who is qualified as an expert by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education may testify in the form of an opinion or otherwise, if the expert's scientific, technical, or other specialized knowledge will help the trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact and issue. The testimony is based on sufficient facts or data. The testimony is the product of reliable principles and methods, and the expert has reliably applied the principles and methods to the facts of the case. Nowhere here does it mention anything about having a PE license. So that's not quite relative, not quite necessary once again, but let's talk about that. In addition to engineering, expert witnesses investigate and testify in medical, business and financial, human resources, family custody, insurance, police and penal, real estate, and more. There's no defined requirement for declaring oneself an expert. However, experts and their retaining attorneys must convince the court of their expertise. So even though the PE license is not required, it is a strong positive criterion to establish expertise. Every adversarial engagement, whether it be at trial or at deposition, it begins with the opposing attorney trying to knock you out of the ball game, and you have to prove yourself qualified as an expert before it can go beyond then. And if you show an advanced degree, many years of experience, and have a PE license, then they can't really do much, and that part goes by quickly and painlessly. So I asked my mentor, how do I get there from here? And those well-established in engineering careers may see expert witness cases fall into their laps without any effort while they are still employed. That happened to my mentor. He was just working as an employee someplace, and somehow someone asked him to testify on something within his area of expertise, and it worked out, and then he did it more and more, and finally he crossed over and retired from his regular employment and went into business as an expert witness, and he still does that. And he's well into his 80s, and he's still loving what he does. Okay, so it dropped into his lap. I took a different approach, and his advice, I seriously pursued this path towards expert witnessing. And the way I did it was I took a course, expert witness training. There's a number of if you just search online for expert witness training, you'll see a number of concerns that will teach that. So they offer training by experienced litigation attorneys. So that was a nice thing about this one. The one I used was SEAK, by the way, spelled S-E-A-K, and I don't recall what that stands for. But S-E-A-K, and it's taught by experienced attorneys, and they teach investigation, how to write expert reports. They give you practice in deposition testimony, and they teach testifying at trial, and they give you a live ordeal. It's kind of like joining a fraternity, of being cross-examined at trial. They make you feel miserable about it, and it's even worse than what the opposing side would do. But anyway, that was a very, very good experience. That was my way to pursue the path of expert witnessing. Just as important, those training firms teach you how to market yourself as an expert witness. They show you how to create an expert witness CV, which is very much different from your resume or your consulting CV. Considerations for forming your own website having a LinkedIn presence, advertising in expert witness directories, that pays off. And a big one here is retaining an expert witness marketing consultant. That's something that I did, and that paid off very much for me. And this last one, allowing expert witness agencies, once again, it's job shops, to earn their 40% commissions for getting you cases. It's, again, the case of chicken versus the egg, which came first. You cannot get experience without getting some assignments. You can't get assignments without experience. So if you put an agent, salesperson to work to get you your first cases, then they do their finagling and they do the convincing, and then actually they've earned it. They earned it by getting me my first cases. So I think for me it was worth it to go through an agency for my early cases. Afterwards, I tried to advertise on my own, and I've been getting work on my own without going through agents. Now, after you've gained some experience, you can get involved with for the National Academy of Forensic Engineers. I've heard it pronounced NAF, vocalized NAF or NAFI. Anyway, after you've got some experience, NAFI defines forensic engineering as the application of the art and science of engineering in matters which are in or may possibly relate to the jurisprudence system, inclusive of alternative dispute resolution. That's a lot of words, but that's their definition of forensic engineering. And it's closely linked with expert witnessing, forensic and law. NAFI is a chartered affinity group of NSPE, and you must be a licensed PE, and you must have some experience in forensic engineering, case preparation. You can become an affinity member without much experience at all, just your interest in it. An associate member, you must have, I believe, at least one case and one expert report. And there are other levels and so forth. Full members must have completed at least 2 forensic engineering cases and testified and been cross-examined in at least 1 trial. They have similar continuing education requirements as NSPE. And NAFI membership enhances one's credibility as an expert witness. And just look it up in www.nafi.org, and you can learn all about that. And really, that is all I wanted to talk about here. The time flies by when we have no interaction. So far, very little interaction, but now we can have a discussion by posting comments and so forth. But I'm going to turn the microphone back to Jonathan.
All right, folks, we are now at the Q&A portion of the webinar. Go ahead and ask your questions in the comments section, and we'll load them onto the stream for Robert to answer.
I'm guessing we have about a 40-second lag, kind of like deep space communication with someone 4 million miles away.
Ooh, Robert, we have our first question. I'll just load it onto the stream now.
Hey, Daryl, thank you. Expert witness CV. Well, let me bring up mine, for instance. I wonder if I can do that here. Um, okay. I don't know if we can see that from here. Maybe I can. Maybe we can. I think I need to share that one. Um, let's see. Where's the? Oh, here it is. Stop screen, and then share screen, and then Chrome. No, not Chrome tab. Application window. Okay, here we go. No, that didn't work. How about? Oh, I didn't hit share. That's why. Can that be seen now? Yes, it can. Okay. Okay, so once again, it's a bit different. It begins with a summary of what you do, and it's in my summary, I show what I do as a technical consultant, as well as what I do as an expert witness, and it's kind of important to keep your shingle out there as a technical engineer as well as an expert witness, and to keep your skills sharp so that you can number one, so you can testify in cases having to do with latest technology, and also so that you won't be labeled as just a professional witness. So then, after the summary, you list your professional experience, all of it, and you CV as opposed to a resume goes on and on and on with every job you ever had, even though back to my early days in the U.S. Air Force as a musician. And before then, as my early days as a professional musician. List all of your licenses and your patents and publications, any lectures that you may have given, all of your lectures again. So it goes on and on and on, and it gives the purpose of it is to lend credibility to your expertise, so that the judge will qualify you as an expert when testifying. And that's about all the detail I think is appropriate for this about the witness CV. Thank you, Daryl, for that. Oh, Ron, thank you for that question. I got burned one time, not by a job shop. Yeah, well, I guess it was. It was by a job shop. You must be very, very careful when dealing with lawyers. If they can find a way to get away with something, then sometimes they will. I did a case where I was very excited to be able to help my retaining attorney's client, because they were getting screwed by the other side. And so I did this case, and I prepared my report, and the report was very strong. I was positive that the other side would settle and not go to court with it. Well, the case sat there idle for several months. And then I heard from my retaining attorney says, oh, they're going to go to court with it. You need to get ready and testify. And I said, okay. Well, what I had done, I had been working off of a retainer. And by the time my report was done and I thought the case was over, the retainer was empty, and I did not insist that they refill the retainer so that it would cover my work. So I went in the hole. I paid for my transportation and my time and so forth to travel to the site where the court trial was held. I got there and I testified, and frankly, I knocked the ball out of the park. And my retaining attorney's client won on all counts, and they got all legal fees paid for. Now, just because they got paid for the legal fees, what did they do to me? They says, oh, I'll tell you what. We owe you $10,000. We'll give you $5,000. Take it or leave it. And I said, but here I got a contract that says, okay, go ahead and try to enforce that contract. Well, they were in California and I was in Pennsylvania. I called my attorney, my personal attorney, and says, what am I going to do? These guys are not paying me. What am I going to do about it? And he says, well, I cannot practice out in California. If you really wanted to get your money from them, you'd have to hire a lawyer out in California and go out there and do it. I don't think you're going to get paid. Well, I did not have any recourse. And so what I did for a long, long time, I tried to annoy them with sending invoices every month. Says, hey, you still owe me money. Hey, you still owe me money month after month. And finally, this year, I gave up and says, never mind. I'm just going to go on with my life. One of the things we learned at NAFI is that most expert witnesses go through that same experience their first time out. What happened? Well, they're trusting. I trusted them. And I said, I've got a good contract. I got a solid contract, and I'm trusting. And I made so much money for them. What did they do? Well, they got away with it. So I only lost $10,000. I know a guy lost $50,000 that same way. Thank you for asking that, Ron. Gave me a chance to spout off, and I haven't vented my anger on that in a few months. And yeah, M. Chip Guru, I think that's it. Payment issues with lawyers and expert witness cases. What I learned from that is to not do anything not to do anything without getting paid in advance. The only thing I have is my service. If I give them a report, if I send them a report, I can't take it back. They've got it. If I give my testimony, I can't take it back. And so you have to get paid in advance. If you're going to do a deposition, it's the opposing attorney pays for it. You don't show up unless you've got the money for it in advance, because good luck trying to get it out of them afterwards. So it's a different mindset from engineering, where people, hey, engineers, we're ethical. For God's sakes, we're ethical. We treat each other right. We don't screw around with inventions. We design something. We design it to the best of our ability, and we get used to doing things in an honest and ethical way. And you have to get used to that mindset that, well, it's kind of like you walk into a bar in a bad neighborhood. You don't leave your wallet on the table. You don't let them get to it.
All right, Robert, I think that's it for questions right now. Folks, if you happen to come up with any questions after this webinar, you can reach out to Robert directly. We will pull up his contact information on the screen right now. Robert, if you could do that real quick.
Sure, I'd love to talk with anyone. You can see my contact information is right there on the, let me make this be wide view on it, fixed with scrolling. Is my email address, my telephone number, postal address, and my website.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Robert, for joining us today and giving our viewers insight into these potential career paths engineering degree can open up and what they can expect on the road to career success.
Oh, one last thing. I don't want to leave it on a sour note. Once you internalize it that you cannot be naive when dealing with lawyers, then they do not resent it when you force them to pay in advance. They understand. They know the rules. They know that if many of their kind will pick your pocket if they have the opportunity. So all of them, the honest ones as well as the dishonest ones, will not give you a hard time if you insist on getting paid up front. And it's part of the game. It's part of the game. You have to enjoy that kind of adversarial relationship, even to the ones who are hiring you. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for that great advice, Robert. I think our audience will definitely take it all in as they pursue these, if any of them are interested in pursuing these potential career paths. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and for your great questions for our presenter. Check back daily on our social media for updates on future webinars, and we hope you all have a great rest of your day.